So now as we discuss some of the factors, and most of you mentioned a lot of factors. Now somebody mentioned about comparative advantage of a country. You also mentioned about that. Now I mean, it's very easy to say, I mean, competitive advantage, but how do you calculate the competitive advantage? How do you put it in numbers? Because unless I put things into, like if you want to analyze all the sectors or 1,000 products, then you can't say, okay, you can't pick and choose, right? I mean, okay, in this I have a competitive advantage. I mean, that's a qualitative thing. If you want to quantify that, then we need some numbers. I mean, we need to find a value for that. So, this is the index which can then analyze what are the, like, which product has the highest potential. And in this export potential index, there are like two different factors. One is, as we discussed, the world demand, which includes the size and the growth. Because like products like tablets, they didn't have a huge size some years ago, but the growth was very high. And even if you see like smartphones, there are a lot of products in which the growth has been very high. Though if you had taken the data 3 years ago or 4 years ago, you would have found the size is very less. But the potential is very high. So growth is equally important. Secondly, in the export performance, we need to see the comparative advantage. And not only the comparative advantage at a particular point of time, let us say now, but also whether that comparative advantage has been growing or has it been declining across the years. Because if it is declining, then you need to again think that whether we will remain competitive in that or not. So how do you calculate the comparative advantage? This was index given by Balassa in 1960s, and it is still used. He got a Nobel Prize in economics, and this kind of comparative advantage he measured as it's called the revealed comparative advantage, which means that what is the comparative advantage revealed by the current exports of a particular product. Now what it says is that the market share of the product in the country's exports. Let us say India's total, we know India's total exports are 300 billion, and the product has a export of let us say 30 billion, just to put it in simple terms. So it is 1/10. So that product has a 10% share in India's exports. So that is the numerator. This is EI by ET, which is this is the exports of the product, and this is the total exports. And then what is the total share of that product in global exports? Now let us say globally the product is traded, and the total trade in that product is $300 billion. The total trade globally is, let us say, $300 billion, and that product's trade is let us say $15 billion. So that is 0.5%, so 0.05. So numerator is 0.1, denominator is 0.05. So that this ratio becomes 2. Now what Balassa said is that if this factor is greater than 1, then you have a revealed comparative advantage in that particular product, which means that the market share of that product in your exports is more than the market share of that product in global exports. So this is one way to measure the comparative advantage. And then obviously if you take these numbers every year, the changing numbers, because these numbers will be changing every year, so you can see what is the growth of RCA across the years, or if it's declining across the years. This is not very clearly visible, but I'll just explain this to you. It just shows that now we measure the revealed comparative advantage. Let us say we find it for all the products, and then we also find the growth of comparative advantage, let us say over 3 years, and we find that number for all products. Now similarly the size and the growth, all those factors that we find the data about that. Now once you get the data, then another thing you need to do is standardize that data. Now any data, let us say, since we are trying to combine different things, let us say I'm adding, the RCA would be very near to 1, 2 or 3, or less than 1, while the size could be some billion, millions. So we need to standardize this on a scale of 0 to 100. So you put the minimum parameter, the minimum one as 0 and the maximum as 100, and then you scale everything on a scale of 0 to 100. So once you get that everything on 0 to 100 scale, then you can easily combine them, and just by putting some weightages. The weightage can be equally weighted, or you can, if you want to put more, like let us say you want to put more weight to the growth as compared to the size, so that weights can still be changed. So then you combine those, combine all these weighted, these composite, these weighted indices, and try to then combine it into a one number. So as I showed, so this one you get this world demand index, basically you will get, which will be a sum of both size and growth, and another you will get the export performance index, which is the sum of all these three, and then you equally weight these two, or depending on you can equally weight them and basically then get the export potential index. So then you get a number between 0 to 100 for all the products. Then obviously you can sort it and you get the export potential index for all these products. So on the basis of this you can decide. Now then obviously you can plot all these, and some points which somebody mentioned about environmental sustainability and about also employment potential. I think I had a couple of slides, but I think this is an older presentation, but that's a new one which I just made, in which we also judge the socio-economic potential of a particular product. Now as somebody talked about environment sustainability, sir talked about creating more and more jobs. So which sector is more employment intensive and which has the highest employment elasticity? Then you need to see which is more environmentally sustainable, which products would have a greater effect on reducing poverty, and which would create more jobs in, let us say, rural areas as compared to urban areas. So taking all those factors and taking the data of all those, we can also make another socio-economic potential index of every product, and then we analyze that which are the products which are higher on both on the export potential as well as the socio-economic potential. So those products would be given the highest focus, and then the other products, then obviously you can choose whether you want to focus, currently more on the export or on the socio-economic side. Now similarly, if you want to select a market, you have a product in mind. So what criteria would you take? Let us say you are producing a particular product and you want to venture into a new market. And there are a lot of, as you know, there are around more than, you can say big markets. If you say, okay, there are 100 big countries. Total there are actually 200, but let us say you want to decide on to which 100 you should send your product. So which factors would you look at?
Competition and target.
Absolutely, competition, very important. Demand.
Some policies of India to that country specifically.
Policies meaning
if it is an exempted product, exempted products are available to what we are trading to that country, and if it is available very free, we can trade without taxes.
Absolutely. So what the point is making is whether the barriers market access is there or not. Whether we can easily trade with that. So it's a function of a lot of things. It could be trade barriers or non-tariff barriers also.
What are the incentives available in the country?
Yeah, absolutely. So how much is the focus? Of the first thing which we decided, what we discussed, which is the government is focusing on a product. So government is like DGFT gives different incentives on different products. And so if that incentive is available, that will directly add to your profit. If the let us say your profit margin of a product is 10%, then and if DGFT gives 5% incentive, that is actually adding 50% to your profit. Because if you are selling 100 and your profit is 10 rupees, and let us the government gives 5 rupees to you, so instead of 10 now your profit is 15, which is a 50% jump. So that incentives are directly added to the profit, so which is very important as mentioned. So you mentioned like some of the factors. So I mean we look at the competition, as someone talked about. Then look at market openness, which can be judged in different ways. Distance could be another factor. The transportation cost is very high, especially like to landlocked countries. The transportation cost is high because you take the product to the port, and then from that port you have to then take it through rail or through road transportation. And even we give extra incentives to landlocked countries, so that so that the transaction cost of that decreases to the exporter, and he can focus on landlocked countries. Otherwise, nobody would venture into landlocked countries. Everybody would say, I'll try to find some place which is easier, in which I can easily get my product to. Could also be cultural proximity. That is like if you can understand the demand patterns, which can come either by you could hire people from other countries, or you yourself build a knowledge base of how the demand patterns or what are the consumers' views about the particular product. Amya sir would talk a lot about that, how different countries perceive different things differently. The country risk is important. If it is a very politically unstable at this point of time, so you sell your product and your payment doesn't come, so you need to look at the currently whether it is currently stable or not. So all these factors, then you decide upon some countries to focus on more.
So which is the most unstable country in the world? Was in the newspapers today. Iraq, of course, and Ukraine.
Eastern Ukraine, basically.
Exporters say that nobody is exporting to Ukraine now. Complete instability, and they shut down a Malaysian Airlines plane.
So that is very